So not too long ago, I did a video on the Logitech G502 X Plus gaming mouse. And part of that review, I was talking about how comparing to my daily driver, the MX Master 3S, the Logitech G502 X Plus is kind of a letdown in some areas for me personally. So I figured I'd go a little bit deeper in discussing some of the differences between the MX Master 3S and the G502 X Plus. If you're new here, my name is Arnell, the comic book gamer, and on this channel we talk all about gaming tech and accessories, especially gaming mice and keyboards, things that really help elevate my setup and my productivity at the same time. So if that interests you, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss another video like this. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the differences between the two mice and why I feel like I'm leaning a little bit more towards one mouse over the other, but why I'm appreciating both mice for the different use cases that people will be picking these up for. So starting with the obvious is the MX Master 3S. This is not a gaming mouse. This is heavy. This has premium materials. It has a lot more added functionality, but it doesn't perform the same way or as well as the G502 X Plus. So one of the biggest areas that are different is the weight. The MX Master 3S is 141 grams, if I remember correctly, compared to the Logitech G502 X Plus, which is 106 grams. So you're going to notice that 35-gram difference pretty quickly when you're scrolling around trying to use the MX Master 3S for gaming. You're going to notice that it's quite a bit heavier compared to the more lightweight feel of the G502X Plus. Another one of the biggest differences is in the polling rate and the DPI. So the polling rate on the G502X Plus is going to be up to 1,000 hertz, way more and higher than the MX Master 3S, which caps out at 125. Another difference is the G502X Plus has the Hero sensor, so that does up to a little over 25,000 DPI, and the MX Master 3S is using the Dark Field sensor, which caps out at 7 or 8,000. Again, massively different in terms of the performance, and really the main reason why is because the MX Master 3S is a productivity powerhouse. We'll touch on some of the differences there in a second, but the main goal of the MX Master 3S is not to be a gaming mouse, to have all of the functionality that is specifically fine-tuned for gaming, for the precision and the quick, turning and accuracy. That's something that you're going to need, high DPI and high polling rate. That's not something that you need for just scrolling on the web or editing a video or editing a photo or doing something on the computer that is not as graphically intensive, or not really graphically intensive because video can do that as well, but you know what I mean. It's just, it's two totally different markets, and for the person that is just using this for video editing, photo editing, scrolling on the web, doing different Word documents, things like that, they're not going to need crazy high DPI. That's just going to be overkill, and in some ways actually hinder the things that they're trying to do on screen. Now, what is interesting between the MX Master 3S and the G502 X Plus is that there's actually more programmable buttons on the G502 X Plus, which to me just logically is kind of interesting. It's just, I guess it kind of makes sense because obviously you're going to want, kind of quick actions tied to your programmable buttons when you're playing a game. But I would personally think that programmable buttons would be better suited, having more of them would be better suited on a productivity powerhouse like the MX Master 3S. There's 13 programmable buttons on the G502 X Plus, but I think there are 8 programmable buttons on the MX Master 3S. Now, both are similar in the ergonomic shape and how it sort of, your hand can kind of curve around it and hug it pretty naturally. However, the MX Master 3S is a bigger mouse overall comparatively to the G502 X Plus. Another big difference is in the look, and that is going to be pretty evident once you're actually looking at them. Now, I have the white version of the MX Master 3S and the black version of the G502 X Plus, so you are going to immediately notice a difference, at least in my particular setup, right away. Again, you're going to pretty quickly tell the difference between the two in that the RGB is found on the G502 X Plus, and it is something that you can turn off. So if you, just want to use the RGBs when you're gaming or just kind of casually browsing, you can certainly turn it on. and then you can turn it off if you are just needing to focus on work, or you're in an office or library setting and you don't want it to be too distracting to other people around you. The materials and the feel in the hand is going to be, again, a sort of night and day difference. So the G502 X Plus is using, at least in my opinion, sort of cheaper plastic materials than you would find on the MX Master 3S. So the MX Master 3S has really nice rubberized, sort of soft feeling plastic. You're also going to find metal buttons, or at least metal scroll wheels on the MX Master 3S versus just straight plastic on the G502 X Plus. Now, that's not a knock against the G502 X Plus, because the plastic is what helps it to keep the weight down versus the metal on the MX Master 3S. So that is a good thing. It's just, if you're somebody that, really wants the mouse to feel really good and high end and premium, you're going to find that on the MX Master 3S versus the G502 X Plus. So the G502 X Plus really just uses the USB dongle that comes with it to connect it to anything in your setup. Now, the MX Master 3S has 3 ways that you can connect to it. So you're going to be able to connect with regular Bluetooth. You're going to be able to connect with a dongle. You're also going to be able to use a wired connection as well. It's pretty easy to swap between the different devices, and you can do that on the fly, and the responsiveness is very quick. So before we get into the part of the video where I'm going to talk about who I think that these mouses are for, I want to remind you to please click the subscribe button and drop a like down below if you are finding value in this video. I really enjoy using both of these mice, and I don't plan on getting rid of either of them, but I do think that they are obviously made for 2 totally different markets. So if you're somebody like me wanting to find all the details on all these things, consider subscribing, because that's what I really love getting into, sort of the nitty-gritty of the differences between things like that. Okay, so who do I think that the MX Master 3S is for? The MX Master 3S is, in my opinion, not made for the person that games all the time, and that's not a surprise. Obviously geared in the marketing and just in the whole Logitech division to be a productivity mouse. So it's great for your office settings. It's great for somebody that maybe will occasionally play a game, because it'll it's good to use in a pinch, especially, if it's just your one mouse, and it's not something that you heavily rely on. Another thing that is really good with the MX Master 3S is for somebody that is in a quiet environment most of the time. It's going to be really good in those instances, because you're going to get a silent click on both the left and the right clicks. And so you're going to find a just really all around powerful mouse that is also silent, so that it's not going to annoy other people around you. So if you're constantly clicking and it's just going to constantly draw attention, distract other people, cause some rifts in the relationships around you, then the MX Master 3S is going to do a great job of just, again, being a silent powerhouse. For me, it is fantastic as a video editor to have that horizontal scrolling. So for me, the horizontal scrolling is a major game changer. Lastly, it's going to be for the person that maybe is prone to hand cramps or hand fatigue. It's going to be great for people that are really looking for all-day comfort and a professional aesthetic. That's what you're going to find with the MX Master 3S. But that's enough about the MX Master 3S. The G502 X Plus, without a doubt, is the best option for gamers between these 2 options here. And overall, I think it's a great gaming mouse among all the other competitors. Logitech makes a really good mouse, and just in general, they make really good hardware. I really appreciate, their headphones, the G Cloud, as you know, I've done several videos on, and, just really anything that Logitech makes in general, they seem to do a really good job. They're not perfect with everything, but I think that they do a fantastic job on things that they set their minds to. That is definitely evident here with the G502 X Plus. Definitely with the high DPI and the polling rate, that's going to make a massive difference when you are playing games. You also have sort of a dedicated sniper button, so that will allow for increased accuracy when you are, sniping, or just need really good precision, fine-tuning precision whenever you're aiming or things like that. The built-in RGB is really nice. It's not a cheap RGB where you're seeing all the individual LEDs, which is something that I personally really appreciate. But also, you are not going to find the horizontal scrolling. So if you're somebody that, again, like me, as a video editor that really uses that every single day, that is something that you are going to sorely miss. Now, you can sort of work around it with the tilt function on the wheel, but it's not the same. Lastly, I'll say for the G502 X Plus, it's pretty cool that you can actually use PowerPlay wireless charging to keep this just going, so that way you are not running out of charge in the middle of a game. It's really convenient to be able to just wirelessly charge your mouse while you're playing. So maybe this is no surprise, but the G502 X Plus is great for gaming and it is not great for office productivity. But that's also the same that you could say for the MX Master 3S. It is fantastic for office productivity and multitasking, but it can be used in a pinch if needed for gaming. So really, these mice are just two totally different mice that if you had to pick one, if I had to personally pick one, I'd probably go with the MX Master 3S. And that's probably because I'm more of a controller gamer than a mouse and keyboard. I can do mouse and keyboard, but it's just not my go-to way to experience a game. And so because of that, I feel like I can get by with the MX Master 3S to just use that for my daily tasks of office work, video editing, all that sort of stuff. And then in a pinch, I can use the MX Master 3S, but more than likely I'm going to default to the controller. So that's just how it is for me. Maybe it's totally different for you. I want to hear from you down below in the comments. If there's anything that I missed about either of these mice that you think that is important to share with other people that might be making a purchasing decision between the two, definitely let me know. And I will catch you in this next video right here. Peace.